final pool game for the All Blacks, with the thoughts turn to who their quarterfinal opponent is going to be. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. New Zealand v Uruguay. This is at the OL Stadium in Lyon. It's on Thursday, 5th of October. Kickoff is 8 p.m. BST. This is world number 4 versus world number 17. So we're going to have a look at the team, starting with the All Blacks. So New Zealand, they've gone for, kind of a 1.5, 1.75 team. Not quite a second team, certainly not a first choice team here, but there are some first choice players in the mix here. So front row, we've got Tuingafasi, Taylor and Lomax. So Tuingafasi wouldn't be a starting loose head. Taylor, you could argue that he's in the mix to be a starting hooker, but it's kind of horses for courses, I think, almost with hooker with New Zealand at the moment. Tyrell Lomax, so I would say everybody's fit, like he's coming back to fitness. If everybody's fit, he's probably your starting tight head. He was very impressive in the Rugby Championship, and himself and the Groot formed formidable partnership there, propping partnership, and I think he would be considered a starter. Then second row, you got Sam Whitelock and Tupou Vai. So Whitelock, you got Retallick is definitely a starter, and then Whitelock and Barrett kind of switch out next to him. But I think Whitelock might just get the nod over Barrett, but it's close. You could definitely see either one of them starting, the other one's going to be on the bench. So he's definitely part of a strongest 23 at least. Into the back row, then you got Shannon Frizzell, who impressed me in the Rugby Championship, and he's done well as well. The chance he's gotten in this World Cup. Sam Cane, the captain there, who he's been in and out of the team. Hasn't quite seemed all that fit either. I know he had a bit of a knock, and then the fact that Sabaya does well as a captain kind of, makes you think whether Kane is going to be in there as a starter when they pick the best back row. But he's definitely going to have a point to prove, I think, in this one, because he did come into some really good form at the end of the Rugby Championship, but then got a bit of a knock as well in that one, and just when he was proving the doubters wrong, kind of thing. So I think certainly on the former scene recently, I pick him at 7, but there are certainly other options there as well. You got Luke Jacobson there at 8. He's knocking out Sabaya at 8 for New Zealand. Sabaya is just such a special player that the only way he loses that spot is when he retires from moves off to Japan or something and isn't available to be picked anymore. Then into the backs, then you got Cam Roigard, who has cemented himself as the backup to Aaron Smith, but Aaron Smith is absolutely the starter. Richie Mwanga is the starting 10 for New Zealand. There was a lot of jostling over the last couple of seasons for that, but he's seen off Bowden Barrett and Damien McKenzie, I think, to prove that he is the 10 going forward. Now, after when Foster finishes and new coach comes in, who knows what's going to happen there though. But at the moment, at least, he is the starting 10. On the left wing, then we got Lester Finganuku. So a player who's kind of he's a really talented player, but the problem he has is there are a lot of really good wings running around in New Zealand, and on the right wing there you got Will Jordan, who if he's available he plays, because you're almost certain that he's going to score at least one try pretty much every game that he plays. So why wouldn't you have him in your team? So that leaves only one spot there for you got Finganuku, you got Caleb Clark, and what's the other? It's like Nehru or something. I can't remember his exact name, but it's the guy that he annoys me a little bit. He's a very talented player, but what annoys me about him is he always carries the ball in one hand, which is probably going to hurt him at some stage. But there's others as well that can play in there. But then in the centres, you got Geordie Barrett and Anton Leonard-Brown. So Leonard-Brown, a little bit of a forgotten man. You know, he looked like he was going to be the solution at 13 long term, but now Barrett and Rico Ioane have formed a brilliant partnership in there. So games like this is where he's got a chance to shine. But I think he's basically shining to try and maybe beat Damien McKenzie to the 23 jersey. As an option off the bench. Then, as we already talked about, Will Jordan, Damien McKenzie there at 15. I think the problem with Damien McKenzie is that he's so versatile that he's not really considered a specialist in any position. He can play 10, he can play 15, you can stick him on the wing, and because of that, he ends up in that 23 jersey, or at least fighting for the 23 jersey, when like his talent in most other rugby nations, coaches would find a way to get him in the team. But, if he's not a 15, you got Beauden Barrett there, and, both can be second playmakers. Barrett is crazy fast as well. So, and then if you need, Barrett can kick from the tee as well. Damien McKenzie not that great from the tee, and maybe that was part of why Richie Mo'unga beat him out for 10. But in a game like this, I think he's gonna, again, we saw when he played 10 against Namibia, right, and he did really well running the back line, and come in as like a second playmaker into that back line as well against Uruguay. He's gonna find a lot of space for them and put people through holes, and then snipe himself as well. So I think he's a great player to pick for this particular game. Onto the bench then, we got Takiaho, who certainly would have something to say about who is the starting hooker for the All Blacks. We've got Williams and Newell. So Williams and Newell are kind of a bit further down the pecking order really in terms of props. You got Scott Barrett there, who again would be absolutely pushing to start in a big game in that quarter final. Got Ethan Blackadder there, who he's someone who, again, there's just so much choice ahead of him. It's kind of hard for him to see game time, but in another nation with less depth, maybe he would be a starter as well, or at least in the matchday 23 regularly. But you look at a lot of the teams of the world though, and you look at the back row stocks they have. Most teams nowadays actually have really big, like there's probably one area where every nation has a lot of depth, but still Blackadder is a talented player. You got Finlay Christie there as well, covering 9. You got Beauden Barrett there covering pretty much the entire back line other than 9, and Caleb Clark there, who will probably come on the wing. It'll be interesting to see whether he comes on instead of Will Jordan, or whether it's going to be a swap between himself and Finganuku to basically like a shootout almost, to see who's in the better form potentially to start in that quarter final, or at least push for inclusion in the 23 for the quarter final. So that's your New Zealand team. On to then Uruguay there. So we got Sanguinetti, Kessler and Arbello. Like, these guys have actually been decent through the tournament, and they scrummage well, and they've been busy around the park as well. I've liked Arbello around the park too. Like he gets through a decent amount of work. And then second row, then you got Doughty and Lane Dakar. So Doughty is kind of a name that has stuck out to me in games as well from the second row there. Back row, Ardao, again, another guy, like he's very aggressive at the breakdown. He can be a little too aggressive, giving away some penalties and stuff like that, but you wouldn't want to take that out of his game either. Then you got Bianchi and Diana there as well, making, it's a fairly useful back row that they have there too. And, they're against the All Blacks, so that's the problem, right? Is that they might be decent players, but against the All Blacks can make anyone look ordinary. So, and, I don't like, and I'm not talking about like just the All Blacks like the way they used to be, where they were absolutely unbeatable. I just mean like the All Blacks, even a poor team, which this is supposed to be, is a really good team, and that's what I mean. So into the backs, then we got Arata at 9. He's another player who's really impressed me. Echeverry, that guy, he's like good and bad, and he just kind of flicks between the two of them the whole game. Like, he'll put in an excellent kick, or he'll give an excellent pass. Next time, then he'll kick out on the full, or he'll miss an easy shot at goal. And he must be very frustrating, tend to have. But obviously, Uruguay don't have the kind of stocks of players that other teams would have, and he does have that talent there. I think he just needs someone to get hold of him and get consistency into his game, kind of similar to the way that Ron Nagara had an effect on Moanga as well when he was down there coaching in New Zealand, where he kind of put it up to him that there were certain areas of the game that he had to improve, and that he had to be more consistent as well. I think I'm not saying that O'Gara made him the player he is, but he certainly had an impact on that, and certainly maybe his mindset as well. And Echeverry needs somebody like that just to get hold of him and kind of almost shake him and say, listen, there's certain areas of the game you need to improve on. And if he did, like, he'd be a very serviceable 10. Like, you could see him being in a squad for a tier 1 nation. He definitely has the skills for it, but it's just that frustration of good followed by bad. Then we got Freitas there, definitely knows his way to the try line. I've been impressed with him as well. Villaseca, the captain, and himself, and Inciarte in the centres. Those two have actually done pretty well. And again, they might be up against it, with the All Blacks, but I think they'll have flashes as well, and we see some good stuff from them. We have Mieres on the right wing and Silva at full back. Again, Silva has been decent running the ball back at full back as well, and not too bad under high balls either. Onto the bench then, front row replacements, we've got Pujadas, Benitez and Piculo. The second row then, Manuel Rodriguez. Back row is Savetta. Then we got Ormachea, Berchese, when he's come on, has looked decent. Manuel Alonso as well there, finishing out the squad. So, it's a decent team from them, but what I'm going to say when we're talking about who's going to win. It's definitely going to be New Zealand, and it's probably going to be a bigger score than Uruguay have shipped up to this point either. Like, because they did have, they put in a decent performance against France, and not too bad against Italy either. And they almost got shocked by Namibia. They were maybe so maybe they're still recovering from that. The effort that they had to put in there to win the game that they were supposed to win. But one thing I can say about them is that the scoreline might be similar to what happened between New Zealand and Italy potentially, but Uruguay are going to make them work for their score more than Italy did. Their heads are not going to go down the way the Italians did after conceding a try or two. They're still going to fight to the end. Like, the fight may not actually do anything in terms of, they're not going to win the game, but they're still not going to give up. And that's why I admire this team and other teams in this competition like them as well, that they're going into games almost certainly knowing that they're going to lose, but they still don't lose spirit, and they give it their all. But yeah, this one is going to be won by New Zealand.